That is so annoying. Okay, so for those of you following along, you know Mrs. Speedy has been preparing for a fitness competition. It's her last week. How you feeling?
I feel great. Last week, I'm excited. I'm ready to get this over with and eat. As you can tell.
Flex your other way. Do it when we see. Dang, that is crazy. That's crazy to me.
So I'm cutting my water this week, so I'm really gonna get smaller.
So let's see. Tell me what your meals are each day this week. So you get what, 4 or 5 meals, something like that?
5 meals. I get about 4 ounces of protein, all vegetables. The only carbs that I get are a piece of toast, and then I do that Monday through Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, I have a different menu that I go off of, and it's just strictly egg whites in the morning, no carbs. I do still get the blueberries, so that's the only carbs that I get, but other than that, it's just 4 ounces of protein and my vegetables, and the water goes down to 16 ounces on Friday, so that's all I get.
So what are you gonna do? Like drink a gallon and a half today, a gallon tomorrow, like 3/4 of a gallon on Wednesday, half a gallon on Thursday, a quart on Friday. No, yeah, 16 ounces on Friday. 16
ounces on Friday.
So 16 ounces on Friday. That's all the water that she'll get for the entire day, and maybe some ice chips Saturday, the day of the competition before you actually go on stage. So pretty serious stuff. So by the time you guys see this video, she'll probably have already gone on stage. They have like a morning session where you have to check in, what, like 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yep.
So she has to do check-ins at 8 o'clock, and then they'll start the competition. They'll have the great big bodybuilder guys go on, and then the physique guys, and they'll trickle down till they get to her class, which is bikini, so around 10 a.m., 11 a.m., something like that. Yeah, right. She'll actually go out on stage, do her deal, and get judged. They'll do the judges' scorecards and all of that. And then you have a break until about 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Yep, then we have the night show. And
then there's a night show, and she's technically judged in the morning, but she'll go back out on stage about 7 o'clock at night. I think that's like more for the spectators that come in and buy tickets or whatever, and they'll kind of like a party sort of. The great big bodybuilders get to pick a song, I guess, and they come out and do a routine to a song. So I've never been to one of these before. She's never competed into one. Have you ever been to one of these before?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's neat to see. If you've never seen one before, it's definitely something to check out.
So this one's the Flex Lewis. It's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at the Embassy Suites. If you're in town, want to come check it out, be sure to swing by and say hi. So thanks to you guys that have been giving some encouragement to Miss Speedy for her competition. Now, let's get to today's video. So I have had the Passport Escort. I think that's what it is. It's an 8500. It has been a really good radar detector. I've probably had them about 10 years. I originally purchased the very first one I ever owned when I had Orange Crush, and I was looking for some countermeasures there. It was a great radar detector. It would pick up radar signals from very far away. At the time, it gave very few false alerts. Had the features that I was looking for. I didn't need a bunch of bells and whistles like GPS and all that because they were very expensive at the time. Again, this was about 10 years ago, and I liked it so much that I actually purchased one of these for every car that we owned. Obviously I bought the first one brand new, and then the rest of them I ended up getting from eBay, and they were pretty cost effective, so everything was good to go there. The problem has been that as things have advanced and cars have started using the lane avoidance and all that stuff, they have that K-band radar built into them, most of them these days, for the auto, I forget all the acronyms for it, but it's like auto cruise control and all of that. This radar detector gives false K-band alerts constantly. I mean non-stop, and I have found myself hitting the mute button 25 or 30 times on a short drive. So to remedy that, I've started looking into, there it goes again, another false alert. To remedy that, like I was saying, I've actually started looking at some more advanced radar detectors, and I don't want to spend a bunch of money on something like this. I want to spend enough that I get a good radar detector, but I don't need some kind of top-of-the-line whiz-bang, control it with my cell phone, post on Waze and Facebook where I'm at and all that stuff. All I want is one that will detect radar signals, let me know where they are, with enough advance notice that I can locate them safely, and that will filter out a lot of the false signals that I come across on my daily drive. So I'm going to show you what we got. And I don't go speeding all over the place and all that. I go to the drag strip to do my racing. However, I find that when folks come across a radar signal, and by radar signal obviously I mean the police with radar or laser on the side of the road, they will jam on their brakes in a panic. And I want to be able to prepare for that kind of thing. And so I really like having a radar detector in the car, so just so that I know where the police are and I can be ready for everybody to start slamming on their brakes when they see them. So that's the reason I use mine. It's just a little bit of a heads up, if you will. So that's what I use mine for. Okay, so like I said, I didn't need something super expensive or super advanced. I just needed it to do its job, and this is what I decided to go with. It's a Uniden R3. It has an OLED LED display, which is kind of a nice touch. I thought it was reasonably priced. It does have all of the K-band filtering, a ton of features, and most importantly, you can update it. So you can actually connect this thing up to the internet periodically, and if there's an update for it, updated firmware or software, it will actually download that software into the radar detector. And so as things advance over time, this should give me a little bit more life out of the radar detector. Now, like I said, I had done pretty good with those Passport Escorts. They did well for me. I've had them 10 years. They probably did great for about 9 of those years. The past year has been more and more frustrating with having to hit the mute button all the time. And so I'm going to replace them with these, at least in the Camaro and the Hellcat. And just unfortunately, when I called Passport and asked them about updating this unit, they said it just isn't possible. This is old analog technology, and they say only their new digital ones are actually updatable. However, when I did some research online, it looks like they sell radar detectors that they claim are able to be updated over the internet. However, it seemed like a lot of the people on the forums and the community groups said that they really didn't release any updates for them. So they would put the unit out and say, yes, it's updatable, but then they would never release any updates. So that kind of made me shy away from Passport as a brand. And when I did the research on the Unidens, it looked like they update those quite frequently. And actually, since I've had this one, I think there's been 2 updates already released. So we're going to update it now and get it to the most current firmware revision. And it is hot in the shop today. Got the door up. I haven't turned the AC on because I didn't plan on being out here that long, but we're going to take us a nice swig of our refreshment. Thanks, Andy. All right, so we've got the box. Manual, obviously. Who needs that? Came in a pretty nice case. Suction cup mount. The detector itself, it's out of the bags. I already took a look at it, obviously. Lightweight. I got the black one, it was cheap. Like I said, cost was kind of a primary factor for me. I don't need to spend a bunch of money on this. It's got the RJ11 connector on the side. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Comes with this great big power cable. I don't like these because they run across the dash. We're gonna do a blend mount just like we did previously with the Escort. And then it comes with a suction cup mount. Now, like I said, I'm gonna use a blend mount, so I went ahead and bought an adapter. And what's nice is when you buy a blend mount, if you ever change radar detectors, all you have to do is buy the adapter for your specific model. Obviously the one for the Escort was different, so I had to get a different one for the Uniden R3, and I think this thing was like 29 bucks. So money well spent. We'll get that installed in a sec. For now, let's get the firmware updated. We're just going to connect up one end to the computer. I'm going to connect up the USB device on the other end to the radar detector. Now there's a little software package that I downloaded already. It's this Uniden R series software download tool. I'll fire that up. The installer will guide you through the steps required to install Uniden R series software. We're going to say next. It's going to put it in some folder. Fine. Yes. Close that. That installs it. Now we're going to launch it with this icon here. Searching for the radar detector now. We'll see if it finds it. Okay, for whatever reason, the laptop did not pull down the driver automatically for the radar detector, so I just went back out to Uniden's website, which is here, and right underneath where we downloaded the actual firmware, there were drivers. I downloaded that and just ran the little utility, extracted the files. It's super easy. Ran that file right there, and that updated the driver. And the way you know, if you don't, do a lot of computer work, you can come into Device Manager inside your computer, and you won't see anything with like a weird highlight or anything on it, like an exclamation point. And there's the driver for the radar detector right there. So now we know we're good to go. We'll relaunch the update utility. Tell it to auto connect. So here you can see we're at version 137.196.1112. We're going to pull up our firmware file that we downloaded, which is here. And we just hit start download. So that's version 148. As you can see, it's much newer. Now it's updating the radar detector. And I really like this feature because it will help kind of future-proof the unit. I'm sure at some point it will probably, you know, they'll get to a point, everything, you know, with technology, you'll get to a point where you can't use it anymore. But this will definitely extend the life of the unit. Yay! Download complete. Alright, we're going to get in here, and I just hooked it up real quick to make sure we actually have our updated firmware. Like I said, it's got a ton of features. Alright, there you go. You can see we're at firmware version 1.48.2.07, which is what we expected. Now we can just contort ourselves and try to get our bracket put in where we can mount it to the rearview mirror. And rather than mess around with this being a contortionist in the car, I found it much easier to just remove the mirror. And it's really easy. It's got a kind of a, not a hexagon, but kind of a oddly shaped piece right there. And that goes on a nut that is basically glued onto the windshield. And these mirrors, I guess they're afraid somebody will bump their head on them, but they're super easy to get out of the car. You just barely twist it and the whole mirror will come out. And then this piece is on the, you'll be able to look at this piece and it just pops off super easy. And on this, there's just a tab right here. If you push on it, it'll slide off like that. And you're basically left with this. You'll have an electrical plug that it's here. You unplug that, and that's how you can get over to your workbench. And now I can work with the blend mount. That's what it looks like all mounted up. Probably have to remove the radar detector to get the plastic pieces back on, but I wanted to get it set. We're gonna do a quick test fit in the car, and then we'll put everything back together. And if you're wondering which pins to tap for power, it's the pink and the black. At least it's pink and black on this 2016 Hellcat. Hopefully you can see that right here. I just tapped those with some small pins and a homemade telephone cable that I made. You can buy these cables, but I made my own. It's pretty easy. And when you go to reattach the mirror, it's really simple. Just cock it to the right a little bit, put it over top of the bolt. You'll see that when you take the mirror off, and just twist it till you feel it lock into place. And like I said, these are real sensitive, so if you're even just trying to adjust the mirror, you can see there it's just about to pop off that nut. So if it ever pops off on you, that's all you got to do is put it back up there and twist it to the right, and it'll lock back in place. And you know I used a level to make sure it was level both ways. Perfect.
X-band, K-band, KA band, laser.
So I'll probably turn some of those notifications off. I don't need to hear all that every time I start the car. But there's what it's going to look like. It's powered from the mirror, obviously. We just got the car in accessory mode right now. I'll go through, there's a bunch of menu settings like I mentioned, and I've got one of these in the Camaro already, so I've gotten used to using it. I'll share with you guys some of the settings that I used here in a bit. We'll also go for a drive and check it out and see how much better filtering it does of those K-band signals than the old Escort 8500. So it's been a couple of days, the weather turned south. I didn't get a chance to go out and test out the new R3 Uniden radar detector. So I took Go Man Go to work today. I'm very happy to report that I've got it set up. A lot of menu settings. I'm not going to go through those one by one because that's boring stuff. I'll just list them here for you, show you exactly what I set up so you can take a look at that there. But what I will say is with it set up properly, I have not gotten any false alerts on the about, let's say 30 to 40 minute drive to work today. So that's good news. Or I take that back, I got one. I stopped in front of like a convenience store and it beeped twice instead of, you know, the constant nagging K-band beep that you would normally get. It beeped twice and then quieted down. So I think it was able to determine that that was a false signal. And so I've got it set in city mode, riding around in the city. Did test it in highway mode out on the highway, same thing. It seems to be working very well. I've got the color set to amber. As you can see there, looks pretty good in the car. I like the blend mount and everything being nice and tidy up around the rearview mirror. So bottom line, I'm happy to say we got success. Much, much better than the Escort 8500 we had in the car previously that would, I'd probably get 20 or 30 false alerts on the way to work each day. So, or not every day, I don't drive the car every day, but whenever I drove the car, I'd get 20 or 30 false alerts. So very, very happy with the Uniden R3. And I was so impressed with those Uniden R3 radar detectors, I needed something to upgrade Project Sport Runner. So I went with this Uniden DFR7. It's actually, I think, being discontinued, but it's a great radar detector. It's been replaced by a DFR9, and because it's being replaced, it makes these extremely cost effective. I think I got this one for about $130, and it has the K-band filtering that I've been looking for. It's not quite as feature rich as the R3, so I've reserved those for the Go Hellcat and our Camaro, but for the 4Runner, this is probably about perfect. And I'm also going to go ahead and make my own power cable for it, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So there's really nothing special about those $20 power cables that you see, other than they might have a little 5 amp or 3 amp fuse in them. I've never had that be an issue for me personally, so I just use literally an old telephone cord, and the 2 pins you're interested in are the 2 middle ones. The telephone cord is an RJ11, and there's 4 conductors in here, or 4 wires. And the 2 middle ones are the ones you're interested in. One will be ground and one will be power, and they're flip-flopped. So if you have a telephone cord, you can actually build 2 cables out of 1 telephone cord. You'll just have to figure out on one end, like on this one, it's red and green. Yeah, red and green are the 2 middle colors, and they're pins, you know, if you're counting from the left to right, and this is pin 0, that'll be pin 1 and 2. And then on the other end, if you take a look, you'll see that the red and the green are flipped. So don't pay attention to the wire colors, just pay attention to the pin positions. And you can use your Uniden or whatever brand radar detector you happen to have power cable, and you can look at it and determine which one's power and ground, hopefully from looking at the pins. If you can't, then you can use like a multimeter or something and see which one gets 0 volts and which one gets 12 volts when you have it plugged into a cigarette lighter. And then you can determine which pins are power and ground. And this is a short one that was made for a blend mount where you actually get power from the rear view mirror. And this is from the old 370Z that I used to have. And in this case, red was power and green was ground. And then I just used some Radio Shack pins. As a matter of fact, there's the pin if you want the part number. There it is 2761429. And it's just some old D-sub connector pins. I soldered them to the wires, and then that allowed me to plug it into the rear view mirror. The 4Runner is old, however. It does not have a powered rear view mirror, so what I'm gonna have to do there is use a spade connector and fuse tap. That'll plug in there, that'll be for power. And then ideally, this is I think a 16 gauge, smaller wire. We're gonna crimp that on. Ideally, I would have a 16 gauge ring terminal for the ground bolt, and I'll just find a bolt somewhere under the dash to ground it with. I don't have any 16 gauge, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make this, I think this is 14 gauge. Or maybe these are 18. Maybe these are 18 gauge and this one's 16. But anyway, the higher the number, the smaller the gauge. The red ones are the small ones. And then I'll have to figure out a way to make that work for the ground. And if you want to save a few bucks and get the DFR7 from Uniden, it still has the long range detection. It has the K-band filtering like I mentioned before. It does come in a nice case. Comes with a suction cup mount as well as a Velcro mount, I believe is what's in there. I'll use the suction cup on the windshield of the 4Runner. And then this is the radar detector itself. Still very nice. It just doesn't have the color display that the R3 has, but it's literally more than half the price. So depends on what your priorities are, but if you want to save a few bucks, I'd be looking for one of these. There's that RJ11 connection on the side. Like I've mentioned before, we're gonna use our telephone cable to get power to it. Here's the built-in cable, if you don't mind those. I never like these because they run across the dash, kind of make a mess of the interior. This one does have USB. If that's important to you, you can actually charge a phone or something. It's got its own mute button. And then like I mentioned before, you can kind of take a look at this connection and figure out, there's 4 pins on that, just like the telephone cable. Figure out, it looks like pin, if you're counting from, with it upside down from left to right, and the colors are what I think they are. Pin 0 is not used, not for this anyway. Pin 1 will be ground, so that's first one there, or second pin, and then pin 2 should be power if they use the right colors, black and red for power and ground. So that'll tell me that pin 1 here would be ground and pin 2 would be power. We'll obviously check that before we hook it all up. But anyway, back to the Uniden DFR7. Very nice radar detector for the money. Long range detection. It got very good reviews, so that's what we're going to use in Project Sport Runner. Easter egg alert. Easter egg alert. I miss you, Orange Crush, but I love you, go man go. Out with the old, and man, I mean, this thing is definitely old. And in with the new in the Sport Runner. We should be good to go. Quick check, make sure it works, and we key power on. Oh yeah.
X-band, K-band, Ka-band, laser.
Now ideally, you'd want this in the center of the windshield so that it's in the center of the car. But the old 4Runner does not have a powered mirror for me to get power from, and I didn't feel like running a cable all the way across the headliner. So that's where it's going to live. That's where we had the old one. Seemed to work fine. We'll check it for level. We're going to call that good to go. And we can throw this old junk away. So hopefully our countermeasures keep us flying under the radar. I hope you enjoyed this content. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell so you get notified of new content as it's published every week. We have some new automotive content just for you guys, and hopefully I'll see you out there.